Hello, welcome to another edition of Low Code Campfire. This is episode number 155 for July 19, 2024. Today we're going to be talking about charting, with an extension of the topic we covered on Wednesday in the Low Code Cafe. Some questions about how to generate reports, and of course our new update 126, a few words to say about that. So we'll get into all that. I am Dale Warner, Head of Support for Plantain App, and joining us now is Patrick Anderson, Technical Success Manager for Plantain App. So we'll spend the next hour with you on these and other topics. I think it's going to be a full hour because we have some submitted topics and some good stuff planned. This is a community gathering, and I can't emphasize how great it is to have a good and active community. So thanks for joining. But we get together, we share techniques and the challenges that we face as we do low-code implementations. So we talk about our experiences. So feel free, bring something to show, be ready to help. We record all these and put them out on YouTube. So at youtube.com/plantainapp, you can see all of these. That QR code will get you there too. We will run this agenda. We always stop for a minute and say hello, and then we'll work through first call, anything you want to talk about first, submitted topics. There are those today. There's new contributions to our community campfire website, and we'll get into other things as well. After an hour, we'll go to Afterglow. We'll turn off the recording, raise an adult beverage or virtual adult beverage, and just spend a few more minutes enjoying each other a little bit on a personal level. So do engage with us, show and tell, use the chat window, just get involved. As I mentioned, you can submit questions and topics in advance, so you can use that QR code, or you could also just shoot me an email at support@plantainapp.com. Hello, community.
Good morning.
Good morning,
Good
everyone.
morning.
Hello.
Good morning.
Did anybody come with a first call? Matt loaded me up with a nice topic: execute actions asynchronously. You might have seen that if you're subscribed to the community forum. And so it gave me a chance to set up a little bit of a demo, so we could get into that here in a minute. Anyone else with something first? All right, we'll come back to it. So this is the submitted topic: execute actions asynchronously. And I set up a little bit of I guess we should probably start with what was the post. The problem that Matt was trying to solve was that he's running some long PDFs, taking 6 minutes or more to generate, and it's not reasonable to make a user hang around locked down while some actions are taking place to assemble all that. So what are some techniques to let the user go on and yet get those finished and get those to them when they are finished? So in that, I suggested using execute actions asynchronously, and that's one way. There's other ways too, but I thought I would demonstrate the problem and then demonstrate the solution. So I created a my reports, and actually I'm gonna we'll just go ahead and take a look at this because I'm running the newest version of 126, the one that we just released. We'll talk about that a little bit more. But I created a my reports, and I want to show you something. This is an entity that I created. It has properties that include, oh, look at that. Somebody hid all the default properties. Maybe that's a campfire thing. I don't think we have actually. I may have implemented a solution, so I don't think we've hidden that yet.
I think that's the code that I gave out.
I
without the
think
day.
I think it is too. I mean, I looked at that all of a sudden. I thought, okay, but maybe we have made that improvement in the product, but I probably not.
I
Anyway,
don't think so. No.
so I'm sorry.
I said I don't think so. No.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah.
So the thing I wanted to show off, first of all, we got properties here for my reports. We're just going to have a name of a report, who the user ID is that's going to get the report, maybe a download URL and a status, but all text fields except for the URL. But the thing I wanted to show off is when I click the save button, watch how fast this runs. It our mechanisms for doing all the things that need to be done when we save for both workflows and entities is running much faster under version 126.246. That's the reason that's the thing that's been holding us up is these performance enhancements. But anyway, I just wanted to see. I'm impressed by it. I hope you are. Okay. So I set up my reports and I have a little form over here that runs a test report, and it's really just a shell. It doesn't really do anything at this point, but let's see what it does. We go to the report form. All it has on it is a button. All the button does is to create a new My Report record. So it puts my user ID and the test report name, and it's a new status. It refreshes the listing so that we can see the listing update, and then so you'll see the my report show up, and then we run this create my report. Now this is a workflow, and currently this doesn't do anything except change the status, and so it runs instantaneously. It doesn't really represent Matt's problem yet, and then we do a nice toast message to say that the report has been submitted. So if we run this thing, it's going to run instantaneously because that thing doesn't do anything yet. So we click the button, we get a test report. It started out as new, but you couldn't even see it. It finished immediately. It's done. So let's now get into what report and whoop, that's an entity. I want workflows. So the workflow takes a my report as an input. What thing is it going to process? It does a partially update to say that it's in progress, and then it does a partially update to say that it's done. So I'm going to, in the middle here, add a wait. This is just simulating this long process that Matt is trying to do. This is 10,000 milliseconds, so that's 10 seconds, and we save it. So now this illustrates the problem. I click run test report, and the user stays locked up for these 10 seconds. We can see that we have a report that's in progress. So the workflow is halfway done. It's running along, and then finally we get unlocked because the workflow finishes, and we go to status done. All right, so I've illustrated the problem. Finally, I can get to what I suggested as a solution. If we go to our run report form, and right here, this is the thing that's taking 10 seconds because it's running the execute create my report. If we add, and this is again one solution. If we look for the execute actions asynchronously, and I'm going to move it up here above the stop execution of toast. We can take this thing and put it inside of an execute asynchronously. So I will export the action and delete it, and instead import it here. And save. So let's see the final result. We're still creating the record in the database. We are still refreshing the listing, but now the only thing different is we've wrapped it in an execute async. And so this is going to run on a different server thread. And that's exactly the purpose. Execution is not locked. So it's going to go on to display the toast message, but then release you immediately. So let's do that. We click run test report. We see it's submitted. We're not locked. We can do other things on this page. It's in progress, so it's running. And then when it's finished, it'll go to done. I will point out that, and it went to done. This, just in terms of this particular implementation, the My Reports listing, I've changed it to be an automatic refresh 5 seconds. So that way this data is being updated all the time, every 5 seconds. And so that's how we're picking up the change. And so this is giving then a user the visual indication that something happened. All right, Matt, I'm going to call on you. So choose to jump in if you want. Yesterday you said that you had done some with execute actions asynchronously, didn't get very far. So did this help?
Well, I actually did, pretty much just what you did. And um, it executed, but it came back essentially with an error because it went to the download file immediately. So I stopped there, put the request in, thinking, okay, am I barking up the wrong tree here? It didn't feel like I was, but I wanted some additional adult guidance on this topic. So it feels to me like for this revised workflow, um, I need to do what I'm doing uh, by executing the workflow, but put that inside like you did an asynchronous action, and then put also the redirect inside that asynchronous action. So I redirect to download a report, right?
Yeah. So yeah, this is kind of why I designed it here with a data table, and why. So the execute asynchronously, you're not going to be able to redirect the user. The execute async is something that, I mean, by definition, they're disconnected from the user, and so they won't be able to, you won't be able to do that redirection there. So now you have to find some other way to let the user know that their report is done. And so in my case, for example, I threw a listing on the screen. You might find some other way, uh, like emailing it to them, or um, putting up an indicator on the forms where they might be. To There's even push notifications, right? There's any other number of ways, but you have to come up with your own way to let them know that it's done.
So if I have an asynchronous, so I've got my button, click the button, it executes an asynchronous action, which is to kick off the workflow. And then on that same asynchronous stack, will I be able to then put the redirect to URL after
No,
that? And will it finish?
no.
Or what you're saying is it'll execute asynchronously and finish without really being finished.
Well, it does everything except get it delivered to the user, right?
Right.
So the execute asynchronously, everything that's in this action, and you can put as much as you want in here, but this is completely disconnected from your user. So uh, a redirect, if you put it in here, will have no impact to the user.
So, okay, but in this case, let's say, so this action stack is asynchronous.
This
Are
this
that
this
is, yeah,
one,
that's asynchronous. Correct. So now expand that. Are those actions underneath there also asynchronous?
the actions inside it, the one I'm pointing to, are
Yep.
asynchronous, all of them.
So
Um,
no matter how many things you put in there, they're all going to start their own thread.
no, these, I apologize. These are going to be done as a normal action stack. So it'll be one thread. If we add multiple executes, you could you could call multiple workflows in here, or create tokens, or whatever you want to do. So we could add, I just want to illustrate, um, but we could add a create update tokens. It's going to do this, and then it's going to do the second thing, and then the third thing in
Synchronously.
sequence, synchronously.
Okay. But in the context overall of an asynchronous operation. So my question then becomes, if in your case you've got the execute create my report, if it's going to be a synchronous process, then the next one added would be a redirect URL, which wouldn't execute until the my report is done, if I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Um, I'm the next action in the stack will happen when the execute create my report is done, but redirect will not work. Redirect this redirect to URL. If we add it in here, it's not pointed out as illegal, but because this whole thing is running disconnected from the user, it
Yep.
cannot impact the user. It can't impact their browser. So this uh, is
Illegal.
illegal, correct? So
Okay.
that mean and this one, the one following your async, runs immediately. So you can't do it below. You have to design your own way to reconnect to connect the user with their report.
The
So
finished product. Yep.
yes, so the simplest way might be, and this might not work in your setup, but the simplest way might be to send them an email to tell them it's done.
Yeah, with the report
Dear
attached or
Joe,
something.
your report is done. Here's the link.
Okay. Yeah, that won't work in my context, but I understand what you're
It
getting at.
so uh, in in my scenario, by doing this kind of a thing where there's a reports table someplace, you could then one of the ways to let a user know would be to have some kind of to use this flag. You could, for example, have a token saying, "Do I have any reports that are done?"
Yeah,
And when I do, redirect you could do something with that, like redirect them to the download, but you have
right.
to be able to control to know what path they might be on. uh, Other systems, for example, you might set a flag on a header that's
Hmm.
that looks for open messages, and then set a message that says your report is done, that kind of thing.
I have a similar, first of all, I think this asynchronous can be generally widely usable for this reason, just to not delay the user. I have another instance where I run reports, but they're running through a queue.
Yes.
And this I could apply this asynchronous right away to to manage that because it's doing similar to what your status is on the right and so on. So that's all good. But in this case, this is an ad hoc report. Somebody wants to see it now, boom, get it. And it's not stored, it's a throwaway. So,
Yeah.
okay.
So that's the I mean, we could do something else to visually indicate that it's still running, and but the problem is you want to free them up to go on and do other things. We don't have
Mm-hmm.
a way of grabbing them back uh
Yep.
to make that work. um I want to point out that there's another way that to do this, and it just depends on your scenario. We used execute actions asynchronously to directly within this. Another, um, depending on the scenario, maybe it might even be better, would be to use an automation, right? So um, this run report, the nice thing about execute actions asynchronously is that that it's going to start immediately without any kind of work on your part. Uh, it's just going to start running that workflow. But if you, another mechanism would be a queue mechanism. You could not do execute actions asynchronously and instead go to automation and create an automation that's sitting waiting for, perhaps it runs every minute or so, and takes a look and sees if there's any reports sitting in the queue to do. And that sounds like maybe what you've done already.
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah. So multiple ways to skin the cat, but you have to. I mean, you're still struggling with the same problem. You're disconnecting the user from the work that needs to get done, and then how do you bring them back? So how do you reconnect? And so
Um,
you're, yeah.
I'm just wondering if, for example, I could use something like, um, well, a token that goes out and checks the status of that thing and then does something, puts a message on screen or something like that.
And you could. The problem is that the token only gets run wherever you put it, where whatever pages the user is on. And so if they go off and you if you kind of have control over where they are and there's a limited number of places that they can be, you can put that token on those pages. But if they go off browsing a news website, uh, you're you're not
Hmm.
going to be able to grab them back.
Right,
Or if
right.
they go off into a page in your application that doesn't have that token, they'll never
Yep,
know.
yep.
So it's a
Okay.
problem. Ben has jumped in and said, execute async can have system implications. And I absolutely agree. If
Yeah.
20 people can kick off 10 reports and you're throwing off many threads, you could overload your server depending on your resources. If you do it as a queue that gets processed by automation, you can thread it one at a time or
Yeah.
a few at a time, whatever, and then not overload. It really depends on um, and I've seen, for example, sometimes the assembly of a report might be consuming your resources. Sometimes the assembly of a report might be consuming resources of some other system that um, maybe is designed for that. So execute async might run and not peg out consume your server. But if you're doing all the work, a queue system might be better. A good point.
Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely. So I'm going to jump to next. A little bit more than a month ago, we released version 126, and um, we did all that. We did an update. The update was released just yesterday, depending on whether or not you have a 126 system. You probably got notified. You would have gotten notified. So if you don't have one, then you didn't get notified. But we normally release things by way of hot fixes. Instead, we had to do what we call a missing dependencies update. And I thought it might be useful just to illustrate what this looks like because we try not to do it, but there's just times, and this is one of them, when it would be super inconvenient for you to try to install these by way of hot fixes. It's one of those, you got to do it all or none, and if you do some, you might break it, that kind of thing. So I'm going to do a system here right now. And before I do that, I wanted to do a backup. We had a question, I can't remember, it might be one of you guys that asked about on our infrastructure, if you host with us, what you get. And this is one of the things that you get. Um, I have a dedicated server, and the one I'm going to do is DropLink. And so I want to do a backup of DropLink. It was backed up already once today on very early in the morning, but we have the ability to do a backup or a restore infrastructure. So we'd say, yeah, we want to do that. And it's going to take off doing a backup, and it'll let us know when that's done. While that's going on, I'm going to go and show the system in question. So this is our drop link application, and oh, I'm not logged in. Give me a second. It's showing anything I shouldn't show.
We can see your password set up here, just so you know.
Really? Okay. Well,
Yep.
luckily the
We can't,
passwords are hidden, so.
yeah,
Oh,
we can't
I
see
stopped
you
my
though.
video. All right. Well, luckily the passwords are not visible, so I don't have to blur out this episode or change all my passwords. So the drop link system, which we've talked about in many times ago, but at least at some point, this is something that we published that lets us share information and not and have it automatically destroyed after a few days or a few views, things like that. The system is working just fine. It's ready to go, but it's a 1.26 system, and so this missing dependencies release has been, I mean, is waiting to be installed for this one. So the major impact the of that is that if you go to the configuration page when you normally would expect to see your ability to edit entities and workflows and APIs, you get this captive screen that says, "Hey, you got to do this." So you still get to control when you do this, but you can't do any low-code development, at least on the configuration page until you do it. And so, for example, we could still do, if there's forms and stuff on the page, we can still edit forms, manage the forms and all. So that you can do certain low code development. You just can't do the things that are on the configuration page. So with a good backup, and let's verify that the backup completed. I'm going to look at oh, there's a bunch of other stuff that's it it hasn't done, but there's a bunch of other backups that were getting done here first. So I'm just going to pretend that it got done. I can actually recover the system if necessary. You just click install dependencies, and it's going to go and download all this stuff, and then install it all in one bulk. So questions about that process, why we do it that way, what you can and can't do, any concerns? I will do a mention, and Patrick, this is as much for you as anybody, but we had one ticket here entered recently, and I think we have one of our users has a less than reliable internet connection from their server. And so what's happening when you install dependencies, it actually goes and downloads all of these things. And it's depending, in this case, it's probably, I don't know, 10, 20, 50 megabytes worth of stuff, whatever it is, and then it installs them all. But in his case, the installs sometimes don't succeed. So he'll get some and not others. And so he described having to once he installed these, then he would come back and he would still have some of them would have been gone, and not all of them gone because they didn't install, they didn't download correctly. So I mentioned that to say we probably need to investigate whether we can do verification that everything installed before we actually go forward. Excuse me, everything downloaded before we go forward. But that's just an aside note for the product team. And wasting time here because it takes a minute for, once everything is installed, then this page starts to refresh and the site will come back up. There we go, finally. And so now we're up to 126.246, and site is back operational again. So I just, my experience, I don't know what anybody else is on 126. I'll just mention my experience with 126. What we've released has been very positive, meaning with all the work that we just did, there, internally QA, there's been some things that until we got it right, we didn't release it, but that stuff that we've released has been very performant and stable. Okay, that's that.
Hey, Dale, this is Mark.
Yes, sir.
I just want to report good news that I went through the same experience just yesterday on a site that I've been developing heavily, and it went very smoothly. I was very pleased. And I've been using the system since then, and it's been zipping right along.
Glad for the report. I did Campfire yesterday and wanted to, part of being able to develop against that and just test to see that it goes quickly and accurately. It's always good to put miles on this stuff, but that's my experience too. So good. Let's get rid of all this to the right so that I don't get confused. So we have the Campfire contributions, our shared community website of techniques and all. And I put the work that I did in Low Code Cafe out on Campfire in case anybody ever needs to use this pattern. So that was all about getting the data to put into graphs and then or charts. This is ChartJS. And so it's all here. Everything that I did on the interactive development I put here, and then maybe a few more things. So what you get out, the end result is that there's filtering. You can filter data by a date range. You can ask what kind of chart you want. And so if you rather, for example, see this as a donut chart, you can apply the filter and get it as a donut. This area is the legend. Legends are kind of cool because you can turn them on and off. So this is showing sales and marketing relative to each other visually. We can turn off engineering. So but if you don't want the legends, you can turn them off. So that's kind of a nice interactive thing. In the episode, I showed all my work and I've hidden that behind the debugging flag. So by turning on debugging, we get to see all the data that's behind that. So for example, this $7,000 here is represented by, sales is $1,910. So showing you where the data that we acquired and how it gets applied to the listings. And then we illustrated how to do drill downs. So if we click on the sales, we get all the total from the sales portion of a listing, or if we click on a name, Alice Johnson, we get the breakdown by the name. So all that was what we covered in 2 different sessions of Low Code Cafe, and I just wanted it out here in case anybody needs to do that.
Yeah, Dale, thank you very much for that. I was very interested in that particular those low code cafes. Unfortunately, my schedule precluded me from joining. However, I am extremely interested in it. So thank you.
Absolutely. So I think I mean, and we wanted it out there. We're driving Low Code Cafe by the things we think that you need, but also internally, we want to be able to do dashboards, and we don't want to reinvent the wheel every time. So when we have a good technique for doing dashboards, we wanted to document it, and then we can point our people both to this and then this contribution, so you can see it at work without and you know, in a understandable way. And then if you want to spend the hour and a half to go through those 2 videos, you can see exactly how to do it. I find it so interesting. ChartJS just, I don't know, I need to turn off the debugging. ChartJS just has so much as part of it, and so polar area was another one I didn't show off the other day, but I threw it in here today. It was this kind shows this has 3 elements, so it's dividing it up into thirds, but it's showing the intensity based on the how high the circle is, so you can see engineering relative to sales. So there's just so much that's available there, and that one change, it's just a you know, one line in the JavaScript to say, well, I don't want pi, I want polar area. So much capability there. So hopefully somebody will get a benefit out of that being out there. And if you ever want to contribute something, need help getting it out there, I'll be happy to work with you on that. So that's Campfire contributions. Feature requests. There are a couple of new feature requests. Both made by Ben. Thank you, Ben. So this feature request is almost a bug report. This one here that says that when you export a token, the token has a workflow ID number instead of a workflow GUID, so it's not very friendly. Importing that workflow token back into another system could end up linking it, almost certainly will end up linking it to a different workflow. So that's not a very good user experience. So this really qualifies as a bug report, but Ben wants it improved, so good spot to put it. I want to remind you, if you like an idea on feature requests, and let's put the feature request URL out here, you just find the thumbs up and click on it, and it upvotes. But the other one, which I think is very relevant, we have the ability to do exporting and importing through automation of several kinds of things. Like you can export a listing and get the XML back from it and then import it into some other system. And so from purposes of automating the implementation of something, being able to copy a system from one place to another, we do parts. So Ben's making the point that we don't do everything, and so we can't do everything automatically. Did I represent that well, Ben?
Sorry, I had to find the mute button. Yeah, I mean, the system internally, you have import and export as a manual process for everything. The issue and what I'm putting here is a programmatic way of doing that. Right now, the only one that Plantain app offers is for modules and nothing else. So if we had actions to be able to export and import the Plantain app objects, such as my tokens, APIs, and all that, in a programmatic fashion, then it would allow us to potentially then start building automatic deployments and or updates or things of that nature where we can write code that will, migrate applications and all of its dependencies over to a new system or, potentially update them, things like that. And I think that would be a really nice thing to have, for those that want to take the time to build a system that can keep itself updated in whatever fashion they want to do.
Right, we got one more upvote on that, so good for that. I absolutely agree, and I think this is I've said it before. We have our version control story that where you can connect and send your low code to a Git repository, and we are doing a good job of getting that pushed out to Git. We have we haven't completed the story where you can retrieve it back from Git, but it's really so we're trying for that, and I think it's important to be able to do it just for the reason you said. I would think that having this import export capability would be instrumental in trying to, whether it's through our version control or doing your own, to be able to move things from system to system. Anyway,
Just to piggyback on that version control, as you know, and many here, my agency is very security conscious, and they limit a lot of things that we as the developers can do. And that version control, unfortunately, because there is a dependency on that Docker application to be installed and running somewhere, they will not allow that here. So in case there are other companies out there that have similar limitations like we do, we cannot take advantage of that feature. So that's one of the reasons as well that this becomes such an important thing for me, because since we cannot utilize that GitHub integration, being able to program our own way of, managing that becomes really paramount for us. Right now, it's mostly, not completely, but mostly a manual process. There's a lot of stuff that I have been able to write to help me out. But again, when it comes to those Plantain app objects outside of modules, those are manual. The modules themselves I've been able to automate, but it would be nice to be able to do the rest of them as well.
are you able to shed any light on what the um, concern is? Is it running Docker? Is it running another application? Is there some other? I'm trying to figure out what the objection is.
I wish I could tell you. All I know is that we basically have to like clear everything
Ah,
that we install, and lots of times we don't even get a reasoning. We just get told no,
okay.
and that's pretty much as far as it goes. And I go back and I keep telling them like, well, can you please explain why? Like, that way I can alleviate any concerns. But sometimes they just come back and say, we don't really care. We're just not
And,
doing it.
and my reason for asking is really twofold. One is that uh, my limited understanding is that Docker applications, while it is kind of the thing of the future, the ability to to enact something that just can run in and not require much configuration and just go. So it's kind of the way of the future, wondering if there's a reasoning that has specifically to do with Docker. The other thing I
If
want
I if I would have if I would have a guess to it, and again, this is a complete shot in the dark, only because I've used Docker in very limited fashions, almost none at all. But I do know a little bit of it. I cannot speak for our networking department and how much experience they have on it, but if I would hazard a guess, I would say it's because Docker is more like an image that we cannot control.
Mhm.
And because of that, that's a big red flag for anything our agency does. If they can't have more control over things, the internal file system of it, how it functions, things like that, or they can't see that portion of it, if it's like a black box type of thing, they're like,
Mhm.
no, thank you.
Can't,
And they say
is this a
no.
Trojan horse? You can't bring a black box
Right.
inside the fortress. The other thing I wanted to mention, and maybe we can put this on our product agenda for next week to talk about again, but we have talked about turning on our the Docker image is running something called MIO, or multi-environment orchestrator. We've talked about making that available to our clients, making our copy available, meaning you would point to ours instead of pointing to your own Docker image. And so now it just becomes a service like so many other things. And so the result is that it would push your content to GitHub. It's not a perfect scenario because now your code is going through our image, and if that causes if there's any concern there, then that's you know maybe it still doesn't solve your
Yeah,
problem.
I was gonna say it if it wasn't again, I can't speak for our networking people 100%, but I just know they have it tizzy about almost everything.
Mhm.
Having them know that like our code would run through your systems first before hitting GitHub may in and of itself be like, again, nope. I would say the only way that I could clearly see that they may accept it is if that Mio that you've designed, if you can offer it as a download where we can set it up, not through a Docker system, but like, similar to DNN and Plantanet, where we set up our own system, we install this Mio, application, and we have it running on our own system that's not in a black box like it is in Docker. That would probably be a little bit more palatable to our networking people because then at least they have more control over, what it is, how it's set up, how it behaves, and it's not so much of a mystery to them.
So I can't because I have very limited experience on Docker. I can't really comment. Uh, I'm not sure that I know that the black box issue is as black box as you say, but uh, so I'm not disagreeing with you. I just don't know, but I'm just telling you that um, it's likely that there's going to be this. If you're going to use our Mio, it's going to be one way or the other. Either you run our Mio in Docker or you run our Mio as a service, and it's possible that neither of those things are going to make you be able to pass your security requirements, or networking requirements. But I don't think I don't think there's a column C, is what I'm trying to say. I don't think we have the capacity to release it as a separate thing. You can um, that would be something that you could ask. I know you're in conversations with Bogdan, and that might be a possibility, uh, um, something that you could raise. But I'm not confident that there's going to be a third option. Okay. Um, Man, I thought it was going to take us an hour to get through all that. It's only taken us 15 minutes. So now we're back to first call, and anything you want to talk about. Other than that, I'm going to give you a minute to think about that, and then we will end early. That's what we're going to do. If you want to hang around for a few minutes and join us for Afterglow. Other than that, we will be back again next Friday. We'll do another episode of Low Code Campfire. Thanks all.
Thanks, Dale.